precious.
Bogly. So the next world religion that we'll be touching on is called Judaism.
Judaism.
Okay. And so for those who don't know, the God of Judaism is known as Yahweh. In English, we say Jehovah. And the name even derives from something impronounceable in the Hebrew language. Right. So it would actually just be 4 letters. Yod, He, Vav, He.
Which would be YHWH, or for
us.
some YHVH.
Right.
Now, what is the difference in that? Why some with the Y and with the V, and why some with the W?
I think that as a letter itself, it's a Vav.
Right.
Within a word, it has a W sound like a W.
So they basically combining both, so there's no issue.
Right. If you're saying it as a letter, then it's Vav. If you're using that inside of a word, then the sound.
Yeah, that's like a U.
Right.
For us, English U.
Right.
You know, it uses the thing, but it's
or,
yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So, so the founder, for the sake of this particular examination, the founder of Judaism would be Abraham. Right, this is considered an Abrahamic religion. Okay, which of the 5 major religions that we'll be touching tonight, I think 3 of them are considered Abrahamic religions.
Yes, right. Okay? Yeah, Abraham's name is big.
Right, whether he would claim that or not is a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, but
so moving forward from that, another founder that people would consider for Judaism would be Moses. Right. Because if anybody knows anything about Moses, he had gone into the desert where this deity introduced himself to him. And from that point, he then led him up to a mountain where he gave him these instructions for this people that he had intended to be the God of, right? And so we know of those instructions as the 10 Commandments, okay? So anyway, the holy books that are used in Judaism, we have the Torah, which is the first 5 books of their holy books, are credited to be written by Moses.
First 5 books. And that's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Okay, and so they also have prophets who had written according to what this God had instructed them to write, and the full culmination, the complete book together with the Torah and the writings of the prophets will be called the Tanakh.
Right.
Okay, and so this is authoritative instruction for those in Judaism. Okay, the believers of this particular religion are called Jews, but not everyone who is a Jew is a practitioner. Okay, so you because to be a Jew means that they're from Judean culture. Right. So if you study the history of the Jews, if they come from the people of Israel, right, who at one time there was a full 12 tribes.
Right.
And then because of certain circumstances, things that they went through, those tribes were separated to a north and a south, right? So you had 10 tribes went north, 2 tribes went south, and then they went into exile. The north went into exile to Babylon, right? Oh no, I'm sorry, I think it was Assyria.
Okay.
And then the south went into exile to Babylon.
Okay.
And according to that history, the northern tribes were annihilated, right? Now, we know not every person of the tribes of the north was in the north when they were annihilated. So, we're not going to say that all the tribes were lost, right? Which is what some people believe. But that the northern tribes as a whole in that predicament were wiped out. And the southern tribes, which was Judah, made up of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, would have been the southern tribes, which would be the Judean people, which we know now as the Jews. But again, not every Jew practices Judaism, okay? And so there's some people that bring themselves under the law of Moses and the practices of that particular faith, right?
And the God that they serve, they claim that their God is the creator of all, the main God, God of all gods, right?
Right, absolutely. A singular God who
Right.
created the earth and everything in it.
Right.
And the origin story of this particular faith is that mankind had disobeyed God and fallen away.
Right.
Okay, and so what happens when Abraham steps on the scene is that this God begins to redeem humanity to himself.
Okay.
So his purpose is to redeem humanity
Right.
from a fallen state.
Okay.
Okay. And so what he does then is that he finds one person, Abraham, and becomes his friend.
Right.
And Abraham basically obeys this God,
Faithfully.
follows him. I mean, God commands him to leave his father's house, everything he's ever known, his own country,
Right.
and go to a place where he's never been,
Right.
and to do whatever things this God has
Yeah,
commanded him to
and
do.
he didn't take him out of one good place and put him in another good place. He basically lived like a poor person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And he
So-
didn't come from that because from my understanding, Abraham and his family, they had money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They were okay. They were well off.
Yep. I believe his father's name was Terah.
Terror. Yep.
Yep. And he was well known in
Yeah.
the region.
Yep.
They would have considered Abraham to be a prince among the tribes.
Right. Right.
Okay. And he was definitely, not a wanderer.
Right.
But now that he, is being told by this God to leave his country and go wherever he's going to show him to go.
Yeah, he's on the road now.
He's on the road.
Right.
So he's, on a pilgrimage, and he's camping in tents and wherever God said, yo, pack up the tent, we're moving on.
Right.
And he went wherever God, God had commanded him to
He was
go.
obedient.
Right,
He-
exactly.
Now it says that he personally seen this God.
No, his encounter with God, was absolutely not visible.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So he heard a voice.
Okay.
Basically, from all that you're going to be able to get from studying the account of this in Genesis. Right.
Right.
And he didn't even know this God's particular name.
Right.
Right. At all at any point in his life.
Right.
So Abraham has only ever known Yod He Vav He,
Right.
Jehovah, as El, which
Right.
means God.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so throughout the entirety of his life, he never knew him by any other
Right.
name,
Right.
or not his exact name, I should say, but he knew him by titles of his greatness.
I was just about to say more of a title, not so
Right.
much as his name, but more of a title
Exactly.
describing. Yeah.
Right, and so his relationship with this God determined what he would call him at that particular time. So, if God saved him out of trouble, he would call him God, the God who saves me out of trouble.
Right.
If he fed him, or the God who sustains me or provides me with substance,
Yeah.
And so, but imagine, walking out a relationship with a God your entire life and never even knowing his name.
Crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But
That's pretty
I'm
wild.
sure the encounter that he had was enough for him to not care.
Yeah.
Know that it
Must
was
have.
serious,
Had
and
to.
he had,
Right.
because you figure, I know that's the story. He got the story of Isaac in that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you think about a man who has to believe a God that's telling you to kill your own child.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yep,
and
absolutely.
him being willing to do so.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
his faith was serious.
To jump off that, right? This God is a God who delights in making covenants or promises, contracts with his friends, with his servants. Okay. And so, in one of these, ordeals with Abraham, he tells Abraham, who doesn't have any children at the time, that he's going to bless him and give him offspring
Right.
as numerous as the stars of the heavens, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. And so then, he ends up not being able to have children with his wife because his wife is barren.
Right.
So she has a maidservant that she offers to her husband to have children in her place. And so when he does have his first child with one of his maidservants, right, we consider slaves at that particular time, this slave becomes one of his first children, which is Ishmael.
Right.
Right. If we go back on what we were talking about with Islam,
Right.
right? The people of Islam consider Muhammad and even some of themselves to be descended from
Ishmael.
right? A son of Abraham. That's how they tie that as an Abrahamic religion.
Right.
So anyway, what God does is that he promises Abraham that he's going to give him a son, of which he's going to fulfill the promises of redeeming mankind to himself. Okay. And so what this God had set up, a series of laws, a series of sacrifices throughout his relationship with the nation that would come from this child that he has, Abraham have. He then gives them his commands for holy living and also for their priestly sacrifices, right? To make atonement. So whenever a person sins against this particular God, when they disobey him, he required an atonement offering to be made.
Okay? Like a sacrifice, right?
Right. So if you had offended him, his holiness could not tolerate the presence of evil or sin because he's a holy God, right? He cannot behold evil. So what he did in order not to have his glory go out and destroy you, he caused you to make a sacrifice, to sacrifice the blood of an animal, right? And basically to atone for your sin.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So the responsibility of that particular sin would fall on this animal, and then he would, take that as an atonement offering. Right. Okay. So he wouldn't destroy you. Your style is unorthodox.
Right. So, just to talk real quick, I know we spoke about Abraham. Let's just wrap up and talk a little bit about Moses. So I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of Moses, the one who freed the slaves, the one who parted the Red Sea, and all that stuff. So, like my brother Jay said, Moses is the author basically of the first 5 books, right? And he's a real popular person, and Moses was the one that God gave the 10 Commandments to. And the commandments were put there to let the people know that they were sinners. You know what I'm saying? So before that, there was no commandments, there was no law. So God presented that to the people. And there's a story on there where Moses led them out of Egypt, and they were walking. They're walking through the deserts and all that stuff like that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, they're walking through the deserts, and there's a story that Moses went away to be with the Lord for 40 days. Was it
40 days and 40
40 days and 40 nights? And that's when he presented them with the commandments. And as Moses is up there, they start to hear things. Basically, they started to hear things like if there was a party going on, like confusion. So long story short, Moses goes down there, and these people are just partying, started making idols and golden calves, and started worshiping these people. You know what I'm saying?
They spazzed out.
Yeah, so God was pissed at that, and God wanted to get rid of them. Long story short, right? Yeah. And Moses pleaded for them. But it just goes to show, these are the people that were with Moses that saw all these miracles. They saw what God did in Egypt. They saw what God did when he gave Moses the power to split the Red Sea. They saw all these things like firsthand and still disobeyed. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's been a conflict since the beginning, man. God's people just disobeying, repenting, disobeying. It's been going back and forth. So I just want to throw that out there.
But he delights in forgiving.
Yes. Right. Yes. His grace is amazing.
Right.
Grace is amazing. So,
amen.
Yep.